I want to ask you about the Soloprov. The Soloprov.
That's it.
Can we just have? Okay, so I'll just pre-frame this. So how I found out about Andy was I wanted to learn Harold, and I was just kind of looking on Google and stuff and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I found this crazy guy who decided to do an entire Harold on his own, and called it the Sybil, which I think you were saying in Monica's interview too. Maybe that's not so PC anymore, calling it that. But it is this magnificent sort of format that that Andy created based on the Harold. Is that correct first before I continue with that rant?
It is correct, yes.
Right, and so I watched on YouTube, and anyone can go there. Just put in Sybil in Google, you'll find him. And I was like blown away. I was like, this guy is a master. I must contact this man. Also, my favourite solo improviser is also Jill Bernard, and I didn't realise that you guys sort of have a connection as well. And so I was like, how is this guy doing this? This guy's amazing. So what I want to do is just, can you give just a little truncated version of like, how did you get into Soloprov? Because obviously you were doing improv before that. So what was the little sort of story behind that?
I think it was as much timing. When I was like, you do your initial improv classes, you start to get the basics underfoot, and then you start to experiment a little bit more, and you do your 8 shows a night. You do your 6 o'clock show, then you do your 8 o'clock show, then you do a 10 o'clock. You do so much improv, so you're ready for something new. So I was in that mode as a performer. And then Chicago was in this amazing mode, just burgeoning. All these new theaters were opening, people reacting to the larger theaters and saying, I'm not getting hired to perform for them. What can I do on my own? And so many improvisers have day jobs. They're really smart people. They're great organizers. They have MBAs. So people just started forming their own theaters and doing their own thing. And I was really lucky to be in a few of those, like work with some of those theater companies that were doing things early on. I had stage time. I was doing a duo show that was a lot of fun that was called Sybil. And then my performance partner was was moving to London. Now, ironically, she lives 10 miles away from me out here in Los Angeles, like many years later after she's been all over the world, really. And now we live 10 miles apart again. But she was not available to continue doing the show. And she challenged me to keep it going on my own. And so I kind of took a bit of the format we had in mind and then repurposed it, got a great coach, and tried it out and enjoyed it. I think I probably enjoyed it more than the audience did. But I kept doing it and just discovered what I loved about it.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good segue into what do you love about it. So what do you like about Soloprov, and how do you feel that it's different from, say, 2Prov, 3Prov, ensemble? What are the main differences for you personally?
Well, I think that it may be different for different people. My terrible approach to solo improv is very physical first. I love to be physical. And I know that
I know. I've done many drills with Andy. Workout plus. Yes. You drill me hard, man, but you're the best. All right. Sorry.
Bouncing around in your room over Zoom. You're a good sport. I had also been doing a lot of like physical theater training too around the same time. And that really aligned for me as something to play with. I'm not nearly as physical when I do sketch comedy or when I do improv, like with an ensemble. But for some reason, when I would do it alone, because the audience was like, I'm confused. I don't know which character is which. And I realized, I have to make these characters really different. So I just became a lot more physical and leaned into the training I had done in viewpoints, in movement, in character spine work. That all came kind of back, and I dove back into it as well with my training, and just loved what that gave me. And I also loved as a writer, because you sit down, you have that blank page, and you might just get stumped. And I know the techniques to push past it, but when you have no choice but to make a physical initiation, suddenly a character has to be doing a monologue to the audience. You don't have a choice not to. You have to make a choice. And there was something about that magical opportunity. It's almost like holding a space for myself to not be allowed to judge. You just there's no room for the judge. You don't have any time. You can't presuppose, you can't second guess. You just have to go with it and listen to what comes out of your mouth, react to it physically, say something else. And there's something very clarifying about that. And I think that I can become a nervous improviser when the stakes are high, but when it's me on my own, mostly I'm just so laser focused because I have to be out of desperation.
Just a masochist. So you do that to yourself. With Soloprov, I kind of, it felt to me like you're sort of freer because you can do what you want, but it's almost like you need to be even more committed. And it's kind of like, Jill Bernard said something like, in Soloprov, your strengths are your strengths and your weaknesses are your strengths. Talk to me about sort of your philosophy around Soloprov. I know that you said you're laser focused. You're in the moment. You don't have that chance to second guess yourself. It's almost like when you were talking about that, it made me feel like it's kind of the ultimate unconditional positive regard for yourself.
Yeah. Isn't that our journey in life? Or at least it's my journey in life.
So,
in many ways.
Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is, you're really putting yourself in a state where the only way to be successful is that unconditional self-love, that unconditionally accepting anything that you do because you just did it and now you have to heighten it. And because it's the rules of improv, you have to love it and heighten it and do more of it. So you don't have an escape hatch, and you get to you get to like confront yourself, but you also get to fall in love with yourself, and you get to confront like the weird themes that come up. For me, it's always like torturing children or putting children in terrible predicaments. Old people that are like sad or mean, like all these weird themes sort of and patterns reoccur. And I think where is that coming from? So you really do confront some of those themes inside of yourself, for better or for worse. And you get to just learn a whole new level of sticking to it and having your own back.
Wow.
Which is pretty powerful. And I think it's a lesson you kind of learn and then you forget it and you miss out. You don't necessarily do it for a while and you realize what's missing and then you kind of recommit to it or you rediscover it.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking maybe everyone should try it from that perspective because, I mean, it's bloody hard, but I feel like it is going to be sort of a challenge to love yourself, to be able to sort of do that, to be okay with yourself coming up with absolute bloody shit, like.
Well, we already do. I mean, so many short form games are already so close to solo improv, and they're a great place to start. Like the game Slips or Blind Line, where you pick up the slips of paper with stuff on it. Yeah. You're already in a character. You could just do the same thing and just do a monologue and pick up slips and incorporate those in and justify them. And if you've improvised for a year or more, you have that power to do it. And I love games like that because it kind of takes your focus off the freak out of like, it's me all alone. What am I doing?
Yeah. Awesome. I'm just looking at my notes. Yes, you've told me the difference. So how do you feel about like Soloprov on Zoom? Because that's what I've been doing. And we've been sort of experimenting with sort of camera angles and different positions and things like that. What do you feel is the future for Soloprov on Zoom?
I think that the future for Soloprov on Zoom is just discovering what's possible filmically. And I so appreciate some of the ways that you've explored and experimented there with like proximity to the camera and characters off and like using some of those filmic sort of tools and ways of communicating as part of the improvisation as well. So whenever the camera is on, it's not just like a filmed theater show, but it is an interaction with the camera. So I think there's real opportunity there. I think the technology needs to catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
That there needs to be some new bells and whistles would really empower it. But I think that it's going to be a whole new generation of people doing really amazing stuff through Zoom. There's something about, I mean, improv in general, like that time, the start of the clock and the end of the clock, and there's that pressure, that sort of tension of like, you have to, everything is happening in between. There is no cut to. I mean, there's a cut to improvisationally, but there's not, you don't cut and go to the next thing necessarily, like you might in a TikTok or you might in a video or a film. So I don't know where that tension is going to play out. I think it's interesting because you're watching a show, you're in a video medium, let's say that. So your brain goes into expecting what we see on video medium, which is cuts and real scenario and real scenes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All the stuff that makes a movie or a film or a TV show, yet we're watching a person alone in a space. So I think there's definitely opportunities to play with that, but I think that the real vanguard is going to be finding ways to like have the camera here, then I have a second camera and that's on something else, and maybe I do something different in a smaller space, but I'm able to make it feel more filmic, but it's still improvised.
Interesting.
There's a long way of getting to say, I think that there'll be new tools that are being discovered. Yeah. By people. I'm really excited to see what tools are being discovered. Like stuff with green screens are really amazing. But then it becomes, is it solo improv if you're improvising with your tech team?
Yeah. I mean, I think probably people will need to be wary, though, of the bells and whistles and not losing the authenticity. When it comes to technology and things like that, you know, getting too caught up in the special effects and the this and the that and whatever. And still, you know, like you've taught me, you know, the most important thing is that the character is authentic. So, you know, not sort of losing that.
There's something beautiful. And you also explore this, which is like the character in close up and the penetrating monologue. And you get to be here with the performer. It's very intimate.
Yeah. That's a lot to think about there. So you asked me to, that's what I wanted to ask you, because you sort of just mentioned it before when you were training for your Soloprov in real life, IRL, that you were very physical and stuff and that sort of came natural. Do you have any background in dance at all? Because I just noticed that, like when I watched Sybil, the live one, with you on your own, that you are very graceful. Your posture, here comes the compliments. Your posture is like really, really great, and you are very precise. And like you said, with characters having certain physicalities that sort of change depending on the character. You're very precise. The clarity is very, very precise. So, do you have any background in like dancing or anything like that?
Anyone who has choreographed me for a show will tell you, no, I do not have a background in dance. I don't think that's, I mean, I certainly have had to dance for sketch shows, which is like, you know, it's dance.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. I think it is the movement classes with like viewpoints. I've taken Suzuki movement, just different practices in movement where you have to be very aware of what your body is. And I think that solo improv, to a certain extent, if you kind of commit to that physical aspect of it, becomes a part of that kind of movement training as well. But thank you. That's a great compliment. But I certainly feel a little bit like, I don't know, I always feel like a little bit of a clumsy ox. No. But thank you. I'll take it.
Yeah, take it. You said something once, and I don't want to quote verbatim because I can't remember exactly, but I just want to get your feel about this. You said something about with your characters, personally, it's kind of like 50% sort of ham and 50% like authenticity and realness. So just talk to me about that. It boils down to two ingredients that I really love.
I love it when I see it in entertainment, and I love it when I nail it, which isn't all the time. But the one is that sense of authenticity, like the actual reaction when someone is in it, or you're in a character and you realize like what something that has been said or done actually means and lands on someone. There, for example, just taking that moment, like even in a comedic scene, if there's a couple that's breaking up and then one of them just like leaves and slams the door, and you're on a stage that has a real door, so like there's that lovely push, that slam, and then the other character is there, and then you have the opportunity to kind of play that character so real in that moment, and it's like it kind of turns on a dime. But if you just let yourself live in that moment, like you've just been left, even though the previous scene was played for comedy, now you have the opportunity to play the seriousness of it. And if that character then, if you like live in that moment and then turn to the audience and what's there, suddenly we're going deeper into that character in a way that was unexpected. And I don't think you even expect it. So I love those moments where you play it for the real, because I think that a lot of us can learn, and I certainly did in short form. You're kind of like playing, you're above the resonance or above the emotional striking of things that are happening. You're constantly kind of like playing the funny or exaggerating. Although I do think that exaggeration has a huge place in the work as well. So the other ingredient that I love, then you've heard it, you say it, is like reaching out into fuckville. Like just when you bring in something random, ridiculous, and you don't know why, but you knew something had to come in or something had to be added. So you become the vapors off of a new stew, and now you're playing the steam off of the stew. Or you make a reference in a monologue. It's like, it's like somebody driving a Zamboni over my heart. And then now you suddenly are the heart Zamboni driver. So you let yourself go to those places that are so random and ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like infinite possibility. I think we spoke about in one of our sessions, I was having a problem with if I go too deep into a character and then I just sort of stay there and I don't make myself uncomfortable, which you want me to do, and jump out of that and do the next thing. But that jumping out is like that sort of innocent adventurer archetype, and I think we sort of spoke a little bit about that. And I see that in you a lot. It's this perfect combination of this really cheeky, mischievous little, the child archetype, and lightness and joy, and just having that real joy in it. But then also this realness that then comes with, like you said, those moments. So it's kind of like, I guess, a balance between those things, because you do have a real joy that I love, that's infectious. Where do you feel that comes from? That's a hard question, but
yeah, I think it goes back, and it's so funny because you always do that, like, what am I, who am I? I listen to all these guided meditations that are always saying, like, what is your true source? What is the universe? You are here like a rainbow or a streak across the sky to express yourself. What is that expression? I'm like, I don't know. But there's something about when I'm doing it, it just feels like a true expression of what I love and the kind of comedy I love to do and the way that I want to relate to an audience. And when it's going well, which it doesn't always go well, but when it's going well, there really is just this, I don't even know how to describe. I mean, it's the same, I think it's probably the same joy people feel when an improv show is going really well. But for me, when solo improv is going really well, I'm like, that's what I was born for. Like, that is it. And then I have a crappy show the next time. I'm like, this is terrible. I should never do this again.
Yeah. You just mentioned something in passing just then. I wasn't going to ask about, but I just will because it's come up. Because in improv we utilize everything. So you mentioned the audience. So in Soloprov, the audience is almost, I guess, like another player, or definitely has maybe a bigger role. How do you feel about where does the audience stand in sort of Soloprov?
It definitely is part of part of the show. It's part of this, another player in the show. I mean, picture yourself if you can imagine this, in a live theater with live people in there. Think back to when that used to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But I truly believe that the audience is part of the electricity that you sort of gather and gain strength off of. Their fear of being called in, pulled up is often palpable. If they we're in an improv show, he's going to call on us. So there's just like that feeling in the room, and they're just part of that world of infinite possibility. Like, why not cast your audience as a character, and suddenly they're kids in a kindergarten, and you're the teacher, and it's your first day, and you're more scared of them than they are of you, and you keep getting their names wrong. Like, why not? They'll play along or they won't play along, and either way it's going to be wonderful, and you're going to make them feel great. You're going to make them look like a rock star. So I definitely feel like the audience is in on it and in with you. And it's funny because it's one of the hardest things for me to articulate, that difference between when you walk on stage and you're just like, I hope I don't screw this up. And when you walk on stage and you let the audience know, I've got you. Like, you've got them, you've got their back. That for me, I think is the relationship. Like, I'm going to take care of you no matter what. Mm. It almost like takes the pressure off of you. Mm. I think it's just a difference of a perspective, and you can drop it in a heartbeat. I think you can lose it. It can make you nervous, or you see your like mentor, your guru in the audience, or your parents, like whatever, like things can sort of shatter it. But when it goes best, and I think that's part of doing it more and more, you are able to recreate it all the time, or 9 out of 10, or 99 out of 100, or 999 out of 1,000 times with more and more practice.
Yeah.
So that that magic is more consistent.
You are the one.